Hello and welcome to EDU. I'm DeRise. I'm a totally different kind of teacher from the one I was when I first started teaching. In the beginning, I knew nothing about teaching, but I was an expert in what I taught and public speaking. Still, I had to start as an assistant professor so that I could first learn the basics of teaching. Eventually, I started to take workshops and read books on how to teach more effectively. And I discovered that these learning theories, when applied, could dramatically improve my students' learning performance. After that, I was hooked, and I was motivated to earn my master's degree in higher education with a focus in online college teaching. And I learned about even more types of learning theories. Serious educators have to learn a number of learning theories in order to practice education. One might assume that there could only be a few different ways to teach students, but teaching is actually more complicated than that. Believe me. And they have to at least be familiar with most of these learning theories so that they can apply them in the classroom with their students, or at least be able to say that they can in a job interview. So you can better understand some of these theories. I'm going to use a scenario model called the Isadora of Brazil scenario. You're probably going to get a kick out of this. So who is Isadora? Okay, well, first let's talk about the learning theory, okay? No, we'll go with Isadora. In Isadora's story, the most fitting learning theory is the theory of self-actualization, which is part of Maslow's humanist theory of learning. Humanist theory argues that human motivation is based on a hierarchy of needs. These needs start at the very basic physical level until they end at the very emotional. One of the final needs is the need to become all that one is capable of becoming. As far as Maslow was concerned, self-actualization is the goal of learning. And many theorists have expanded on his theory. Sahakian, for example, posits other goals in addition to Maslow's, such as the discovery of a vocation or destiny. The knowledge or acquisition of a set of values, the realization of life as precious, the acquisition of peak experience, a sense of accomplishment, the satisfaction of physical needs, the refreshing of consciousness to an awareness of the beauty and the wonder of life, the control of impulses, the grappling with the critical existential problems of life, and the learning to choose discriminatively. Isadora developed in a number of ways which support this theory of learning. She did discover a vocation and destiny, which did enable her to become much more than she had been before. She did develop a set of values and knowledge which gave her the focus and drive to make the sacrifices necessary to achieve her goals for her and her parents. Putting her parents' dream of returning to Brazil at the forefront of her career future was a sign of her appreciation of the beauty and wonder of life. And her accomplishments in school did give her the confidence to pursue her opportunities in Brazil. She did control her impulses to continue working in the menial jobs and not let fear keep her from going to college at the age of 30. Through this whole process, she did make discriminative choices, which could not have been easy for her. But she did, and in the long run, achieve all of her goals and many greater opportunities. This long experience served as a vehicle for her to achieve true self-actualization, and that she actually was able to achieve and become much more than she had planned. It's really an amazing story. Isadora. Anyway, when it comes to adult development, she's a great example of that. There are various theories on adult development which focus on various concentrations such as race, gender, sex, sexual preference, etc. The model which best suits Isadora's story is that of Brenner's bioecological systems theory. This theory was designed to be applied to children, but it has been argued that it can be applied to adults as well. This theory delineates 5 layers of the environment or systems that influence development, and Isadora clearly lived in all of these layers. First, the microsystem, which includes the activities, roles, and interpersonal relations in the Isadora's immediate environment. This includes the homes, schools, and workplaces in her life. Next is the meiosystems, which is that which defines the relationships between these microsystems. In other words, these are the relationships between the home, the school, and the workplace. The exosystem is a larger system of influence which may not even be influenced by Isadora, such as the relationship between her home and her parents' workplace, or the relationship between Isadora's school and a community group. The macrosystem is a system which contains values, morals, or mores and laws that affect these systems. For example, Isadora went straight from high school to work at the same factory where her mother had worked and was likely to marry another Brazilian and raise a family with him in New York, just like her family had. This is one of the reasons for why it was so difficult for Isadora to commit to the decision to go to college. It was difficult because her macro system was based on an ideal which did not support her going to college. Next is the chronosystem, which refers to the influence of time as it relates to the person's environment and subsequent development. It must have been a point in time in which reaching the age of 30 brought Isadora to the realization that the only way her parents' dream could come true would be if she were to step outside of her macro system and go to college so that she could earn the money and or the opportunity to make their dream come true. So now let's look at cognitive development. Isadora's story fits the cognitive development model known as women's ways of knowing. Now, bear with me, okay? It's just a theory and it's not mine. In this model, adult learners find themselves at different stages of development known as positions. This model begins with the position of silence, which is when women experience themselves as mindless and voiceless and subject to the whims of external authority. The second position is that of received knowledge. In this position, women conceive themselves as capable of receiving and even introducing knowledge from the all-knowing external authorities, but not capable of creating knowledge on their own. The third position is that of subjective knowledge, which is a perspective from which truth and knowledge are conceived of as personal, private, and subjectively known or intuited. The fourth position is called procedural knowledge, which is a position in which women are invested in learning and applying objective procedures for obtaining and communicating knowledge. And the fifth and final position is called constructed knowledge, which is a position in which women view all knowledge as contextual, experience themselves as creators of knowledge, and value both subjective and objective strategies for knowing. Isadora probably fit into the position of silence until after she worked at the factory upon graduation from high school. The fact that she was following in her mother's footsteps indicates that she was just being passive and allowing herself to be defined by others, just as her mother had been. But she must have moved into a position of received knowledge while working at the factory until she was 30, because it would have been that experience which would educate her more on what her opportunities could be. There she would move into the position of subjective knowledge, where her understanding of truth had to shift to herself, developing her intuition and valuing that over logic and abstraction. This is probably where she gained her voice, and this position probably led her into college, where she moved into procedural college. In this position, she developed separate knowledge, which is when the self is separate from the object of discourse, making it possible to doubt and reason, and connection, knowing which is when there is intimacy and equality between the self and the object of discourse, based on empathetic understanding. This position most likely led her to her opportunities in Brazil, which enabled her to move her parents to their home where they were all able to have their dreams realized. Now, at this point, Isadora must have achieved the position of constructed knowledge, which is the position characterized by an authentic voice. This cognitive development model is applied to this scenario, not just because Isadora is a woman, but because it fits her development scenario. Despite its title, this model is not just limited to women. Depending on their cognitive development, it can be applied to men as well, okay? Again, not my theory, but you can see how it can work for people. So, when it comes to instructor perspectives, let's look at that. Based on experience, diversity, consistency, and repetition are three of the most important factors in teaching adult learners. Diversity is valued when considering the many different ways in which students learn. There are areas of strength which vary from student to student. For example, some students learn more effectively through writing, others through watching movies, and others through testing. As a result, it is important to hit one's students' minds from all these angles with as wide a variety of method and medium as possible. Consistency is important from the perspective of communicating the same curriculum through all of these mediums. Conflicting curriculum will only confuse the student and discredit the educator in the eyes of the student. Repetition supports the consistency argument in that the curriculum must be lightly reinforced throughout the educational time period so as to ensure long-term retention of the curriculum. When teaching adult learners, it would be advisable to learn and understand all of the developmental models discussed, whether supported by the educator or not. The point is that these theories can give the educator a better understanding and almost intuitive ability to make adjustments for the sake of their students in both long-term and short-term ways. If there are a number of older students over the age of 45, one adult learner theory supports the idea of handouts containing larger text so as to support students with declining vision, or the utilization of a sound system for lectures to students with age-based declining hearing. Whatever the theory may be, these theories are based on systems of analysis, which have been proven to be true on some valid level. The reason for learning these theories is so that educators can effectively teach adult learners for the sake of their learning and not for the sake of the educator's teaching of a given curriculum. All right, let's wrap this up. As I said earlier, there are a lot of different ways to teach students. The Isadora of Brazil scenario allowed me to examine just a few, but I'm sure you get the point. You may even be a little intimidated by this variety of learning theories, but you shouldn't be. Instead, as an educator, you should look at this variety of methods as a toolbox, full of options for teaching the diversity of learning types you could have in your classroom. Think about it. In the real world, the classroom will teach you that one size does not fit all. Okay, well, if you liked this video, please click the like button. I hope you did. And please leave your comments in the comments section below. I want to know what you think of these videos. And why not subscribe, okay? All right, until the next video, take care.